Sick of your boss? Blacklisting? Turkey? No, that's the biggest one. The council's fight cuts? That's quite big. Okay. Alright, then we'll just decide where to put everybody on the base of that. Okay, Patrick?
Thank you, Chair. Patrick McCall, President of NIPSA, Northern Ireland Public Service Trade Union, and I'm a member of the Committee for Workers International and the Irish section of that, the Irish Socialist Party. Comrades, first of all, can I thank you for the honour of the opportunity of speaking at this meeting today. These meetings are extremely important to your movement here, but they are equally important to us in Ireland. It gives us an opportunity to learn from you. And can I as well bring to you today the greetings from NIPSA's General Council, its National Executive. The General Council met last Friday. It was the first meeting ever of a broad left majority General Council of the Northern Ireland Public Service Union. Comrades, at that meeting we had a serious discussion on the issue of austerity. It merited the discussion that you are having here today. And we had the opportunity, I think, of taking the first steps in turning the movement in Ireland around, preparing the ground and launching a new campaign to combat austerity, take on the bosses and smash the Assembly parties who support cuts. We agreed a number of small but I think important steps. First of all, our movement, and NIPSA in particular, over the last year or so, has produced excellent material pointing out the faults of the Tories, pointing out the faults of the austerity programme and even the faults of capitalism. But it has not yet taken the step of pointing the way to the future and pointing out the alternative. At our meeting of the General Council last week, we agreed to produce a new document that points out the faults of capitalism but points out the need for a socialist economic alternative as the way forward. We agreed as well, comrades, to take the first steps in building a coalition of the willing in Northern Ireland. I and the General Secretary have been tasked to sit down with Unite, the FBU and PCS in Northern Ireland to lay the foundation stones for that alternative, and I think that will be a significant step forward for us. We agreed to relaunch a propaganda campaign against the austerity programme that has been implemented in the North. And I must tell you, that's against the background of silence by the trade union movement for the last year. Where you have had struggles, we have had none. Where you have had unions that are prepared to stand, we have had none bar PCS in Northern Ireland. And that has left a vacuum we now have to try and fill and rebuild the confidence of people that a real difference can be made. So we have had to relaunch a propaganda campaign. And on top of that, we have now undertaken to prepare for a conference of resistance to austerity in the early autumn. That conference of resistance will not be a talk and shop to point out that the Tories are bad. It will have to be an organising point to prepare for action to defeat the Tories' cuts. But I think, comrades, the most important task that faces socialists, that faces NIPSA and that faces yourselves is this. It is the rearming of our movement. It is beginning a real discussion and debate within the movement about what the next steps are, and NIPSA has agreed to undertake that task. What we want to do is reach out to people across the movement, to the individual members, not just to the tops, not just to union conferences, not just to the activists, but the membership layer on very, very important points. And they are reflected in the discussions that you are having here today. We have a little bit of a similar problem to the problem you have. In Northern Ireland, our trade union leaders are 100% opposed to Tory cuts. Utterly opposed to them. They just will not move when it's a DUP cut or a Sinn Féin cut. It's a little bit like saying we are opposed to the Tory cuts, but if a Labour council gets rid of jobs, we have nothing to say. And what we have to say to our movement is, if a Labour council gets rid of jobs, if Sinn Féin gets rid of jobs, if the DUP get rid of jobs, we will rip their goddamn heads off and we will fight them as much as we have fight the Tories. It really doesn't matter whether austerity wears green or whether it wears orange, or for that matter in Scotland, whether it wears the tartan of the SNP. We have to fight a unified campaign against all the political advocates of austerity. And that is a task. That discussion has to be had with our members in the North, and we are beginning now. We also have to look, I think, at what forms of action we can take to turn the austerity programme around, to stop its implementation. Because that is a difficult issue. We have, I think, been thrown back as a movement. It's already been mentioned how November the 30th led to a situation of a loss of confidence, quite deliberately, I think, as pointed out by Chris. There was a deliberate decision taken to take us down that road. People would lose confidence. So we have to rebuild our fighting capacity. We have to rebuild that confidence. We have to rebuild the feeling that you can fight and you can win. And for that, we need a coherent programme. What we are raising within NIPSA and what we are raising within the wider trade union movement is, first of all, a broad coalition of the trade unions, of welfare campaigners, of genuine community activists, of political parties and political activists who are genuinely against the cuts, and a coalition of all those who are willing to fight. We are prepared to take all forms of action. Local strikes have their place. Campaigns have their place. Direct action has its place. Political action has its place. All forms of militant action have their place. But I think this conference is absolutely right to put at the head of all those options, the key point at this time, the unifying point, the real strength of our movement would be the call for a general strike. That is the weapon we must employ in the near future, because the general strike will bring millions onto the streets. It will challenge the Northern Ireland Assembly and even bring it down if that's what needs to happen. It will challenge the Tories in Westminster, and it will begin the process of reversing the austerity cuts that we all face. Again, comrades, fraternal greetings to this conference. I have every confidence that we will build, and we in NIPSA are glad to be linking with you for the future. Thank you.